Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. We're going to give it about 2 minutes and we'll get started promptly at 2 after. Thank you.
You go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to our friends on the West Coast. Welcome to our presentation on how to build a high-powered HR machine in 2019. Today, our presenter will talk about the next frontier for HR leaders and show you how you can maximize the impact of your organization this year. My name is Charles Summers. It is my pleasure to be serving as your moderator during this hour. If you want to get in touch with me about future webinar topics, Outmatch-specific information, or if you'd like to speak with one of our many talent experts, feel free to reach out to me directly at csummers@outmatch.com or just chat in your comments. Outmatch helps organizations make the best possible decisions about their talent throughout the candidate and employee lifecycle through our predictive talent platform. We provide talent assessments, on-demand video interviewing through our recent acquisition of WePow, automated reference checking, culture analytics, and post-hire development tools. These technologies work together to identify the right talent and develop them into future leaders at the world's most iconic brands like American Airlines, HCA, Disney, Walmart, and just to name a few. As we do at the beginning of each webinar, I wanted to give you some product updates. In addition to our recent acquisition of WePow, our new video interviewing software, we recently launched features in our assessment to help you compare candidates side by side, find every candidate's best fit in your organization by comparing them against multiple roles, and kickstart career pathing and succession planning. If you're interested in learning more, reach out to me directly at csummers@outmatch.com, and I can put you in touch with an expert. As Outmatch's capabilities continue to grow, we'd like you to grow with us. So when you have a chance, head over to the website, sign up for a future webinar, and get a demo. You can sign up for a demo at outmatch.com/schedule a demo, as you can see on your screen right now. As a thank you for attending, everyone on the call today will receive a free copy of our latest ebook, an HR Buyer's Guide on how to evaluate HR tech in the machine learning era. I've gone ahead and put that in the handout section of your GoToWebinar status window. Our presentation today is all about setting yourself up for success in 2019, and machine learning is a crucial part of that. This ebook will help you cut through the marketing hype, invest wisely in new technology, and ensure that you're getting the most out of your AI. Speaking of trends in technology, please take a moment to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter at OutmatchHCM. We're always posting the latest trends, best practices, and insights on hiring and talent management, so we'd love to hear from you. You can interact with us today during the presentation using the questions queue in your GoToWebinar status window. Please feel free to ask questions, make comments, or share feedback. You can also ask questions and leave comments on our social media. Today's presentation will take approximately 30 minutes, and following that, we'll have some time set aside for audience questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Jason Ferrara. Jason has been with Outmatch for nearly 5 years, but his experience in the human capital management space began about 15 years ago with Career Builder. Jason is our brand, product, and communications guru. He's also built a strong partnership with many of the biggest HCM players, including HR thought leaders, as well as ATS, Business Solution, and other leading HR tech providers. His vantage point within the HCM market makes him perfect for today's presentation. So at this time, I'd like to hand it off to Jason. Jason?
Great. Thank you, Charles. A couple things. When I was preparing for this webinar and I saw that Charles was going to mention that I had started my career more than 15 years ago, I tried to count it up, thinking that sounded like a long time, and then I ran out of fingers. So I suppose that's probably right at about that period of time. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about building a high-powered HR machine. So building a high-powered HR machine, there's a lot that goes into that, obviously. It's probably something more that we could cover in probably in an hour and a half rather than a half an hour. But we'll really dig into the basics here, what you need to know, and how we should go about it. Before we do that, though, I'd like to take a look at some trends that are happening in the HR tech industry. Most likely, these are not new trends to you, but they're worthwhile in the context of this conversation. First of all is technology, AI-driven technology. Not only is it hot, it's real, right? Machines can do things that human brains cannot. And so harnessing that power and that technology is incredibly important and can be incredibly advantageous. The issues, however, that start to come out of AI-driven technologies are real. There's a little more scrutiny looking at the technology, a little more scrutiny looking at the results that come out of AI technologies. But certainly that is a huge trend, began, I'd say, probably a year and a half ago in earnest and is really picking up steam. New opportunities for measurement, new measurement techniques. So a Gartner report about a little over 3 years ago, companies were still using enterprise-wide annual surveys to assess engagement in their employee base. Those surveys were either paper-based or they were online survey tools. They weren't anything that you could consider today to be real-time pulse engagement, that sort of thing. So, new opportunities for measurement that are starting to happen are happening much more quickly. There are opportunities to even take a look at employees' ID badges, take a look at computer usage, and see how email gets used, how internal collaboration networks are being used that can help companies understand the engagement of their employees. Specialized HR IT roles. So I don't think this is a secret to anyone either. If you've been in HR for a long period of time, you've certainly seen the need to understand data better, to understand data security better, to understand data privacy better, to understand integration better. And so what a lot of forward-thinking HR organizations are doing are bringing in new roles to the HR team, not as reliant on what was traditionally an IT infrastructure team. So the data scientists, the analysts are beginning to sit now in the HR teams to understand all that new data and really create some specialized roles. Specialized tech solutions. Again, this as we go up here, it's just all about how can we answer the questions that we have in a more detailed, in a more granular way, make it happen faster, right? So companies are showing renewed interest in technology and innovations. It's certainly no secret the explosion of HR tech over the last several years. HR tech continues to explode in that way, right? Something that's new this year probably wasn't around last year and is replacing something that may have even been new last year. So specialized tech solutions happening very, very quickly, both for talent acquisition and talent management, talent development. And then you see push recommendations. You know, push recommendations in the way that I think about it is the way to harness all these pieces of technology we just discussed into a way to alert management, to alert employees, to alert a human capital team about what's happening with the employees in a company, right? It can simplify some tasks for people. It helps illustrate engagement of an employee base. But really, rather than us going to look for that information gets pushed to us. And that's not possible without AI, without new measurement techniques, without specialized roles, without specialized solutions. So all these trends do link together as you look at how the world will play out in 2019. So really, we want to get to the heart of HR operations, right? How do we conceptualize talent management? So before we get into that, I'd like to do a quick poll, and Charles can get that all squared away for us.
Okay, just give me one moment here. I'm pulling up the poll. All right, so it's distributing the poll right now. We'll give everybody about a minute to get their answers in. Okay, so which trend is most likely to be something you pursue in 2019? AI technology, new measurement techniques, specialized HRIT roles, specialized point solutions, or push recommendations? We're about 30 seconds in. About half of you have voted. Give it another 5 seconds here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll.
All right, so thank you for doing that, by the way. Sometimes these polls, they're easy to fill out for you, but they're really insightful for us. So what the results were 23% said AI technology, 33% of you said new measurement techniques, 9% talked about specialized HRIT roles, so you either have them or you're still relying on your infrastructure team to do that, which is also okay. 19% specialized point solutions, and 16% were push recommendations. So, what's great about these numbers, first of all, is all of these trends are important at some level. All of you recognize the importance of those trends. New measurement techniques clearly tells me that in your business, you're being asked to help your company understand what's happening with the employee base, what's happening with your selection programs, selection process. So that fits perfectly into what we're going to talk about today, new measurement techniques, and how to really put all those techniques together to drive your HR and your human capital programs forward. So let's take a step back quickly, because I think some context around this would be great. Imagine yourself at the start of your human capital career, and you're asked to put together a talent management program. So you're going to go to Google, and you're going to type in talent management. You're going to see a number of images that I think are great images to see. Colorful, awesome images, all connoting connection, right? Puzzle pieces or Venn diagrams or gears that move in one direction, and everything's super connected. It's really great. It's really fun to see. Even some processes that are linear, right? First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. That's your beautiful talent management process. That is the ideal, perhaps. That is not the reality of how talent management works. And all of you on the phone know that. All of you on this webinar understand that. What we want to make sure is that someone new to talent management doesn't come in and say, oh, well, it's easy. I just connect these 4 pieces and I'm off to the races, right? It's not quite that simple. It does require connection, but it isn't always these integrated, finely integrated pieces. Most often, it looks like this, which is the way Deloitte describes talent management. It is made up of multiple silos, right? You've got planning, sourcing and recruiting, learning and development, performance management, on and on and on. And you know these silos because they exist in your organizations. Perhaps some of you are responsible for each of these silos. Perhaps some of you were responsible for the integration of some of these silos. But certainly this is how talent management looks for most of the companies in the world. Now, one of the great things about HR technology and the growth of HR technology is the recognizing that these silos exist and recognizing that there's a better way to do it, how to put these silos together, how to replace dated systems that continue to perpetuate silos, how to integrate the information in those dated systems, how to make sure that we're not doing manual data entry, right? How to make sure that your vision actually gets put into action. And that's, again, what we're going to talk about today is this, how to put your vision into action. But saying that talent management is always a great cycle or as a continuum sometimes is wishful thinking, right? So we want to go back to the drawing board, right? We want to say, are these the right silos? How do we connect these things? What is the right way to do it? And so we want to break those silos down. And we want to bring in HRIT roles. We want to bring in human capital professionals that understand how HR tech works. We got this massive technology boom. We've already talked about that. So we want to know what the game-changing technologies are, frankly, what game-changing actually means in the HR tech world. So there are 2 ways to think about this. One way is to think about the HR human capital management and managing all this IT as a stack solution, right? I've got some point solutions out there on a wheel that then pull into one hub, into one, what makes one round wheel and a tech stack. You hear a lot of people say, oh, this is my tech stack. What's in your tech stack? And you name off point solutions. The other opportunity is for a platform solution, right? Platform solution really has its genesis in someone sitting around saying, well, why buy all these separate pieces of technology? Let's put those separate pieces of technology on a platform, right, where you can interact seamlessly with different pieces. Depending on the size of your company, depending on the savvy of your organization, depending on how much money you have, you do one of these 2 things. You have a stack, you have a platform solution. Right now, it's really kind of up to your discretion about
Hi there, it's Jason. We're back. I think we had some technical difficulties. I apologize for that. We're back talking about, let me just back up one slide to make sure that we're connected on the context of what we're talking about. We're talking about technology solutions, stack solutions versus platform solutions, and that, you know, really in your organization, you do one of these 2 things. As we move forward to talk about those different types of solutions, the other thing we want to recognize, so you've got silos, you've got technology solutions, and then you have different parts of the HR management process. You've got an ATS, Somebody worries about ATS every day. You've got a learning management system. Somebody worries about that every day, right? You've got other systems in your ecosystem, and you have people who are focused on those systems. So really what we're talking about is, how do we take all those silos? How do we take all those pieces of technology, and how do we take the professionals who are working with us to build a program, build a talent management process that is inclusive of selection and development of employees, that is inclusive of data used in the selection process to get used in the development process. So if we go look at, and so that's what we're going to start talking about here. If we look at the silos that we've got, I want to zero in on these middle 5 silos. We've got sourcing and recruiting, we've got learning and development, performance management, leadership development, and succession planning, right? We want to focus on those silos, because what we're going to do with those silos is we're going to break those silos down even further into the pieces that are pre-hire and the pieces that are post-hire. Now, the secret here is, and the long-term goal here is, to connect the pre-hire and the post-hire, right? Because we know that decisions made on candidates before they're hired, then they get hired, have an impact on that post-hire relationship of that candidate to the business. So what we're trying to achieve is connect sourcing, assessment, interview, reference, onboarding, those pieces of the pre-hire with the pieces of the post-hire: development, culture, engagement, performance, and succession. All those go hand in hand. So we're really going to start talking about efficiency. One of the first things that comes to mind here, and the productivity of your teams. How do we streamline the workflows from sourcing to onboarding, from development to succession, right? We want to streamline those workflows. And one of the reasons we want to streamline that is because the labor market today is really tight. And if you don't have the most streamlined process, you have the chance of losing people in the pre-hire phase, and frankly, you have the chance of losing people in the post-hire phase. If you've got employees who say, boy, we're really tight, we need more employees, but we're not getting them in fast enough, I've got 15 jobs, I can't do it anymore. Those are the types of people who you risk losing, right? So we want to streamline the pre and the post-hire. How we're going to streamline that is we're going to begin to share data, right? And so we're not just talking about an employee's home address or their wage information. We want to streamline, we want to include that data anyway, right? We don't want to do manual data entry on these things. We want to think a little bit bigger, but we want to think about what's possible to get all these systems to talk to one another. So the great thing about this framework, it doesn't really require you to overhaul every single piece of your talent management process, right? Some of these things you're already doing. You're already sourcing, you're already perhaps assessing candidates, you already have a development program or a measuring culture. One of the things we want to be able to do, though, with the data is connect the data to understand which candidates perform best on the job, which of the employees are going to be the most effective leaders, which top performers are at the highest risk of turning over, and how business growth will really affect employee engagement, right? Those are really big questions that you can begin to answer when you begin to connect the data. So we want to talk a little bit about what the data is. Right? So Outmatch, we're a talent analytics company. So we think of the world in terms of humans, obviously working at companies, but what the data tells us about, at scale, what the data tells us about their performance in the pre-hire process and in the post-hire process. Right? Our goal is to predict employee performance on the job, to predict employee success in the organization. So the data we're most interested are the markers of success, right? The characteristics of an employee that can be connected to outcomes. That's how you build predictive models that you can learn what's working inside your organization and use that to help those models to help bring in and select new people on the pre-hire side. So we're really looking at understanding job fit and culture fit, right? Those are the two things from a pre-hire perspective that will help us bring in the right talent into the organization. And then with our employees who are already working with us, our employees on the team, we want to understand their performance. We want to understand a little bit about their tenure. How long have they been in the job they're in now? Have they been in multiple jobs in the organization? And we want to understand their promotability, right? Now that's a little bit about their job performance and how their job performance will affect the rest of the organization and affect them. So for example, in a service industry, customer orientation is one of those things that we want to look at. Customer orientation tells us a lot about job fit, tells us a lot about culture fit, and then their ability to perform. Right? In a startup culture, adaptability is really important. It's a great competency. It's an important competency to have. It'll help understand job fit, culture fit, their ability to perform. Perhaps adaptability hits right to tenure, right? Will that person stay? How adaptable are they? So we want to understand employees who have these core values, who share these competencies. Those are the ones that will be most engaged. And as a result, those are the ones who will have the best performance. So when we know about job fit and culture fit, those are the two most important predictors of success, right? And what you need to do is find ways to measure those two predictors at every stage of your selection process, in the pre-hire process. So you also need to be sure that that data you collect, that you learn about at each stage, gets collected in the same place, and then that it can be used moving forward. So for example, behavioral data from an assessment. Behavioral data from an assessment is one of the most critical pieces of data you can use to connect that pre-hire and post-hire, to really use data to bring your talent management process together. Because you're going to learn things in an assessment that you can then use as you interview. Your interview questions, your interview interactions will be based on the results of a selection assessment. Those results can then also follow that candidate to the reference process. Right? References are still antiquated in many ways in many companies. The right reference process uses results from an assessment, uses the data gathered during an interview, and uses that in the reference process to go out and corroborate what the assessment has shown and what the interview has shown. This is really the way for companies to understand if the candidate has done the job, if the candidate will do the job, and if the candidate can do the job, right? Those are three really important pieces. And once you know those three things and you've said, yes, we're going to hire this person, then you move to the onboarding process. The data that you've learned about in assessment, interview, reference pieces can be used to help more successfully onboard that candidate. And this is where you can now jump across that gap, which most companies have, that pre-hire to post-hire gap. You can unify that gap by taking that data and saying, all right, where does this candidate need to develop skills, develop competencies? Well, we know from the assessment. We know from the data gathered in the interview. We know from the reference point of view, from the people who've responded to the reference. We know where their areas for development are. So we now can take them, once they're successfully onboarded, and begin to develop employees right away. If you think about this as one example of one individual, it's pretty powerful. If you think about it as an example at scale, when you're hiring thousands of people a year, Now this becomes even more critical to move people through the process faster and then to understand what types of development your employees need. The way that all this data then gets put together can help you with succession planning. I understood who they were pre-hire. I know how to develop them post-hire. Is this person ready to move on? Are this cohort of managers that we brought in ready to move on? They've been through a development program. All that data, each one of those steps we just showed, the same data follows through each one of those steps. And the ability to build the models, to have the data follow through, really is about using machine learning technology. So in the beginning, we talked about those trends, right? Machine learning is a subset of AI. It is a piece of new measurement, like the things that all of you were interested in learning about, or at least 33% of you were interested in learning about, bringing on. It is a part of HRIT, right? And it's a part of push recommendations and push functionality. So we're using this machine learning to build the models based on the data that you've collected during the pre-hire and post-hire process. The results of these models are these highly predictive algorithms, right? I got to show you a geeky algorithm here, or it wouldn't be doing my job. It's really about a highly predictive algorithm. It's about an algorithm that is able to continually take in more data and perfect itself. And it's really about your ability as an HR professional to look at the outputs of that and say, yeah, this machine is predicting what we want our talent management process to look like. It's a combination of you and the data that we're using in these models. And again, that's what is going to close that gap. That's what's going to close the gap between pre-hire and post-hire. It just, honestly, just so happens I had a conversation this morning with 3 clients, one in hospitality, one in a nonprofit company, and one in property management. All 4 of us were on the same call. We were preparing for an event, and what we began talking about is the need to connect pre-hire and post-hire, and the need to have the data to do so. And it's funny that just literally came up organically today on a phone call, and this is what's going on across talent management. And once you have that data, and once you're able to capture that, you're now able to connect both those sides, pre-hire, post-hire, and understand who you can hire to increase performance and retention of your employees, to understand when you need to step in to prevent the turnover of top employees. All of us have a story of a top employee who turned over and sort of that pain that you feel when that happens. You need to know before that's going to happen. This data can help you understand that. Also, how to promote high potential employees and how to choose the successor to the person you're promoting. And then how to build teams the right way, right? Some people are complementary to others in their competencies and skill sets, and you want to put those people on the right team. This is what the models and the data help you do, and this is what's possible when you begin to break down those 2 parts, the pre-hire and the post-hire part of the talent management process. So Charles is going to run another poll for you and get a little thoughts around the talent management world after going through the conversation here.
Okay, the poll is distributing right now. We'll give it another minute here. Which HR technologies are you looking to add in 2019? Assessments, video interviewing, automated reference checking, culture and or engagement tools, or leadership simulations? We're about 30 seconds in here. All right, we'll give it about 10 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll.
And so what's great about these results here, the 32% of you are looking to add assessments, 34% looking to add culture, 21% looking to add leadership simulation. There is some video interviewing, some automated reference checking. But what is great about these three areas that you're outlining here, assessment, culture, leadership simulation, these are all areas where gathering data is of primary importance. And the gathering of that data through assessment or what you can gather through culture really inform the way you tweak your selection process or build an engagement process for employees. Really at the core of how you connect pre-hire and post-hire. So just from a standpoint of these are individual products, that's super to learn. But for the larger picture about connecting pre-hire, post-hire, this is really important, and you're going to generate, if you take action on these things, you're going to generate so much data that you'll be able to use to continue to transform the processes that you already have. That's really, really important.
Okay, so that actually moves us to the questions part of our Q&A section of the webinar here, and I've got a few. So everybody, go ahead and take a moment to get any questions that they have in here. We'll be sure to answer them here within the next 10-15 minutes. So we'll give you just a minute. All right. So the first question that I have here comes in. So the longer you collect the data, the better. More predictive with machine learning, is that right?
Yeah. So the idea behind machine learning is that you build an algorithm, and that algorithm uses data to continually improve itself and the model that it is building. So if you want to improve across a certain dimension, you have to start with enough data to train a model, right? Enough data so that the model says, yeah, when I run all this data through, I get an answer that is a statistically significant answer, and that answer is also something that will work in and help me understand my process. The more data you add to that will improve the outcomes of that model, right? Which is why the whole point of some AI conversations and machine learning conversations is once you put an algorithm in, continue to run it and continue to feed it, because it perfects over time and you continually will improve. Let's say it's selection and you're using assessment data to do that. It will continually improve your selection process, right? It'll continue to improve the models that you've built. And that's important because you can, if you think you're hiring good people now, down the road, it could be 6 months or a year down the road, you're just continually improving the types of people that you're hiring based on the models that you're building and perfecting.
Yeah, and so I actually have a follow-up question here from the audience too. Jason, how do I plug in machine learning to my processes? Where do I begin?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple places to begin. One is, and I don't know the organization that you're with, so I can't quite speak to this, but I can tell you without a doubt, in your IT team, on your infrastructure team, there is someone who understands machine learning. There is someone who understands that process. Go find that person, ask as many people as you can. That person exists in your organization. The other thing that you can do while you're looking for that, there are some really great resources. I know that Outmatch has a few resources about machine learning specifically, questions you should be asking and answering to understand how machine learning works. And then, the third piece really is about look at the data that you're able to gather during the selection process. What is that data? And is that data that you can use to help you improve the selection process? If you're not really collecting any data, you need to begin doing that. So identify a person in your organization, gather research online, give Charles a call and he can send you the machine learning information we have. And then the third thing is, you're going to need to generate data during your selection process. You can do that with an assessment. begin to use that as quickly as possible, and that will generate some data for you.
Great. Okay, so I have two more questions, and they kind of go together here. So we'll start with, you talk about performance, tenure, and promotability. What kind of improvements can I expect to see? Do you have examples of companies who have become more predictive in talent management? And then the other part of that is, how do I measure those outcomes?
Yeah, good. So, to really get to the core of this question is, I think the second part you got to answer first.
Yeah.
How do I measure outcomes? What are the important outcomes to measure for the people who are on my teams, right? If you have a call center, you need to understand the measurements, which are, is it calls per day, or is it sales per day, or whatever your business model is. You got to go to the person who's managing that organization and understand the key metrics for that organization. If I just think about Outmatch, we have a sales development team, and the sales development team's role is to respond to leads that come in and connect with those people, right? So we have a metric of time for responding to a lead and how many interactions a sales development rep has with someone who is a lead. Those are key metrics for us. So what we're able to do then is understand and look at the performance of the people who are in those roles and understand what the characteristics and competencies of those people when they were in the selection process. Now, because we're a company that provides assessment as one of our products, we can go back and look at assessments, and we can compare those assessments with job performance data, right? And that is built into a model, and we can continue to say, all right, if we want more people who perform in this way, we have to go get more people who have an assessment that looks like this, have a job fit that looks like this. So number one, you got to decide what the right outcomes are for the job that you're trying to select for. That's different for every job, right? From a cultural perspective, there are cultural attributes you're going to look for too. Some cultural attributes are organization-wide. Some cultural attributes are going to be different for every job, right? So you need to really understand those metrics. And then once you have those, I'm just looking at the second part of the question here. Once you have those metrics and you begin to act upon those, the types of improvements that you'll be able to see really are around, you'll be hiring individuals who perform better or perform up to your standards sooner. Their ramp time will be less. Their trajectory for success will be steeper. They'll be successful more quickly than those who have not been built on the model that you had, your old model. So your new models will predict success, predict people who will be successful faster and at a faster rate. That's really what you're going to see. Some of the outcomes of that you'll also see, in depending on the type of business you are, greater customer satisfaction, right? You are going to see potentially higher revenues. If you have a call center and you're trying to sell something, right, you're going to see higher revenues, higher close rates on the phone. And so you can bring all of the success of those employees back to a specific a metric for your organization. So those are the types of things you'll be able to see. And just tangentially here, we're talking about trends and HR and the important connecting pre-hire and post-hire. Why we're so particular, there are really two reasons why we're particularly passionate about this topic. One is business improvement. Okay, when you are able to connect pre-hire, post-hire, when you're able to understand the impact of data on hiring and data on employee development, your business will perform at a higher level. That is operational excellence that will come out of the human capital team, and that's where that human capital team begins to have more influence in the organization, begins to have a real seat at the table where decisions get made about where to open a new store, how to open a new store, how to launch a new product, how to staff a team. Those types of outcomes are where HR professionals go when they can connect data and outcomes, connect pre-hire and post-hire, and really bring value, business value, and business improvement to the organization.
Great, thanks, Jason. That actually brings us to the end. If you do have any other follow-up questions, you can go ahead and send them directly to me at csummers@outmatch.com, and I'll make sure to put you in touch with one of our experts. Brings us to our last slide here. So thank you all for attending our presentation on the next frontier of HR leaders. We'll continue the conversation about the future of HR in our next webinar, how to keep your hiring process human in the age of automation. In this webinar, we'll have on Emo Udom, founder and CEO of a successful HR tech company, to share stories about how companies are finding the right balance between being a human and being efficient in talent acquisition. If you'd like to listen back to any of our previous webinars, go to outmatch.com/webinars or email me at csummers@outmatch.com. Hope to see you all next month. Thank you.